Welcome, everybody, to the NFL Draft Geek Prospect Review. I'm Brian Johannes, and once again, we are looking back at this past Saturday how the top 2019 NFL draftable prospects did in their week's games. So, if you're new to these, what we like to do is just kind of hit up on some of the big games and then hit up on some of the top prospects. Just kind of highlight what they did, show clips to just kind of show you as you continue to get more familiar with these prospects, or just kind of keep up on them and how they're doing week to week. So let's go ahead and get started. The first game that we're going to look at is Clemson versus Florida State. This was a one-sided showing. Clemson won 59-10. In this game, there was a lot of defensive prospects to kind of keep an eye on. The big matchup that we highlighted in our scouting guide was Brian Burns, the Florida State defensive end, against Mitch Hyatt, the left tackle for Clemson. Hyatt's kind of struggled a lot lately, especially with speed, so this is going to be something to kind of keep an eye on. Burns was held in relative check. He had one tackle, one quarterback hurry, so Hyatt was able to neutralize him. He didn't go up. Now, he didn't go up on Hyatt every single play. He'd flip side to side at times. But, and Burns still definitely got some penetration. So this is a game that I'll be anxious to go back and watch to really look to see how Burns did. And just from watching, you could see he was able to get some penetration, and they helped a lot on him, but not the type of game that a lot of us were thinking. There was talk that, would he get 4 or 5 sacks in this game? A couple other prospects, Clelin Ferrell only had 3 tackles, 1 sack. Dexter Lawrence had 2 tackles. He had a nice pressure that he got in the quarterback's face, DeAndre Francois, that led to an interception. Christian Wilkins had 2 tackles, a quarterback hurry, a half tackle for loss. His big highlight was a rushing touchdown. Austin Bryant only had a tackle. Albert Huggins, their reserve defensive tackle, who's pretty good in his own right, had 1 sack. So a lot of your big names in this game, this really didn't put out the big statistical. So in situations like this, I'm not ready to just say, oh, hey, bad game for these guys. This is one I want to go back and watch the tape and see where they neutralize, a guy like Brian Burns, where they rolling running backs over on a regular basis, or tight ends, or chipping him to kind of neutralize them. One player that did kind of stand out was DeMarcus Christmas, who had 7 tackles and a quarterback hurry. Big run-stuffing defensive tackles, so he probably statistically had the best game out of all these defensive prospects. What I want to talk about is Notre Dame winning 44-22 over Navy. The player of this game was Dexter Williams, the Notre Dame running back. He served a 4-game suspension to start the year, but he's been back for now 4 games, and he's really been a big reason why this team has been so good. He's had 142 yards and 3 touchdowns in this game. He was averaging 6.2 yards per carry, and he's a physical back who doesn't go down easily. He's able to get off tackles, get those extra yardage, and it was definitely on display in this game. Since Dexter Williams has been back, 4 games, 4-game suspension, 4 games back, he's averaged 128 yards and 2 touchdowns a game. So I know a lot of people want to say Ian Book being inserted in that starting lineup was a big reason why Notre Dame is really kind of taking that next step. You can't look past Dexter Williams as that player too, and he's draft eligible, so it'll be kind of interesting to see what he does in this upcoming draft. Also for Notre Dame, Tavon Coney had 14 tackles. Just once again, such a tackling machine, and he continued to put that on display here. So he's kind of limited as an athlete, but if you need a downhill run stopper at linebacker, he's definitely a guy to kind of keep an eye on. Probably the biggest game of the day was that the world's largest outdoor cocktail party between Georgia and Florida is kind of the de facto SEC East title game. Although Kentucky and Georgia next week is that title too. Georgia ended up winning 36-17. Once again, this is similar to that Clemson game. Not a lot of draftable prospects really shined. Ja'Kai Polite's been one of my favorite prospects. He only had 2 tackles. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, kind of that nickel corner for them, plays that star position. He's maybe more of a safety down the road. He had 10 tackles. He was all over the field. Georgia outside linebacker DeAndre Walker had 5 tackles and a half sack. So not eye-popping numbers. One player that did step up that I kind of want to point out was Isaac Nada, the Georgia junior tight end. He had 5 catches for 73 yards. Here's a guy that I had heard all about as a sophomore. Was able to watch a little bit of him his junior year, and he was used mainly as a blocker. So it was nice to kind of see him out running routes and getting the ball targeted his way. Sticking in the SEC, we had a big East matchup between Kentucky and Missouri. Kentucky ended up winning on the last second play, 15-14. So it was a low scoring affair. Drew Lock in this game, once again, he plays against tougher competition and he does struggle. He only completed 15 of 27 passes for 56%, 165 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions also. So once again, he plays good against the bad teams, struggles against the good teams. Kentucky, Benny Snell actually kind of struggled a little bit against Missouri's defense, only 67 yards rushing, no touchdowns there. It was CJ Conrad that caught their game-winning touchdown, their tight end. So definitely a player to kind of keep an eye on. He's once again more of a blocking tight end. But Josh Allen continues to shine. He had 11 tackles in this game, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for losses. Once again, just kind of really inserting himself as a potential first-round pick. I still have some questions maybe about his flexibility at his bend, but his ability to get after the quarterback is definitely on full display. In the Washington State versus Stanford game, there was definitely a lot of prospects to kind of really keep tabs on. Gardner Minshew continues to really establish himself as one of the better quarterbacks in this class. He completed 40 of 50 passes for 80%. You throw 50 passes and you complete 80%. That definitely is an illustration of your completion, just your accuracy. And I don't like to go solely off of completion percentage, but that's pretty impressive. He threw for 438 yards, 3 touchdowns. Helped Washington get the win here, kind of control their destiny in the Pac-12. For Stanford, KJ Costello didn't have a bad game. 34 for 43, 323 yards at 4 touchdowns. I haven't been totally impressed with him this season, but definitely a good game for Costello here. His 2 top targets, JJ Arcega-Whiteside, continued to impress. 10 catches for 111 yards, 2 touchdowns. One of those touchdowns was such a Arcega-Whiteside type play. He just literally boxes out the defensive back and goes up and gets the ball. And he's a guy that the more I've seen him, the more I've liked him. So I'm curious to see him as he continues to go through the season. And I'm really anxious to see how he's going to go in the NFL draft, just because he's not the greatest of athlete, but he's such a talented contested catcher. Caden Smith, their tight end, is a guy that I've really pretty high on. 9 catches for 112 yards and a touchdown. His touchdown came on kind of a scramble play where he was a blocker off a play action and just found an open area, caught the ball, and was able to get into the end zone. Bryce Love left this game early. He only had 5 carries for 68 yards, including a pretty long run that helped him get into, set up a touchdown. Left the game in the second quarter with his ankle injury, something that's kind of been plaguing him this year. Stanford hasn't had the best offensive line, and he's been kind of banged up. So he's a player that was thought to be a Heisman contender, but definitely, his ankle injuries and that have really kind of limited this year, which is too bad for him. Moving over to the ACC, we had NC State take on Syracuse. NC State lost 41-51. 2 prospects really kind of that I'm keeping an eye on. Ryan Finley, the NC State quarterback, he only completed 59% of his passes on 26 of 44 for 473 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. I think he's just, he puts up some big numbers, but really shows his limitations in these games, and he's so dependent on his weapons. One of those weapons, Kelvin Harmon, had 11 catches for 247 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had a 74-yard reception where he was able to get past the defenders in for that touchdown. He had another back shoulder type throw. I like Harmon. I think he's got a ceiling, and he's still got some potential. There's some questions out there about his athletic ability and his ability to separate. But, you watch him, I've seen him get open on double moves. I've seen him adjust well to the ball. He's kind of in a lot of lines like a lot of the top big receivers that we've had that's more of contested catchers than route running. One of the other matchups that we kind of focused on in the morning in our prospect scouting preview, was the Texas Tech Iowa State game, and that was the matchup of running back David Montgomery from Iowa State and Texas Tech linebacker Dakota Allen. Montgomery, as he has the last couple weeks, went off. He had 33 carries for 125 yards, 2 touchdowns. Continuing to show why he's my number 1 rated back. Burst, power, change of direction. He's got it all. That's not to say that Dakota Allen didn't have a good game. He still had 16 tackles. He had a tackle for a loss and a fumble recovery. Just your ultimate space player, a guy that can just run and tackle. He's built for this current NFL type defenses. One other player to kind of keep an eye on is Hakeem Butler. He's Iowa State's top receiver. Big guy, 6'5", 6'6". He had 4 catches for 148 yards and a touchdown. One of his big catches, he was able to get behind the defender, go up and make that catch. Just proving to be a big-time player, and he's a guy that's starting to get a lot of traction in the NFL draft community as a guy to watch. He's only a junior, so you never know, is he going to come out, is he going to stay? But between him and David Montgomery, definitely the two, those two are one of the biggest reasons why Iowa State is having so much success, both this year and last year. A couple more games. Arizona State beat USC, and a big part of that 38-35 victory was the play of N'Keal Harry. He only had 4 catches for 95 yards and a touchdown, but he was all over the place. He had an Odell Beckham Jr.-like catch, one-handed, where he's able to adjust to the ball kind of behind him, make a one-handed catch. I know I put out on Instagram between him and Deebo Samuel, who had the better one-handed catch. Not only did N'Keal Harry have that big catch, he had a touchdown where he was able to get free in space, catch it and run in, and then he also had a 95-yard punt return for a touchdown. And there's some big concern about him. Is what type of athlete is he? Is he going to be able to separate? I don't know, but he's definitely a guy that I think is a playmaker in this league. Good extreme catching radius. Maybe a DeAndre Hopkins-like comparison is good for him. But anytime you have a 95-yard touchdown return where you're running along the goal line, you get it around the edge. Earlier in the season, we saw that Texas-San Antonio game where he caught the ball and eluded basically their entire team. This guy is a better athlete than he's getting credit for. All right, last game that we're going to talk about is Oregon's lost. They lost 44-15 against Arizona, and Justin Herbert has kind of been struggling a little bit. The last couple of games he started off slow, but he's really picked it up. And the same thing happened, but he was never able to get out of this hole. He only completed 50% of his passes, 24 for 48, 186 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. I was such a good fan of him after that Stanford game, but he really kind of struggled since then. I can't wait to dive into the tape and get some of the nuances of this. But part of it you could say, oh, he doesn't have much for receivers. I think that's starting to go away. He should be making some of these plays. The type of quarterback that we saw in that Stanford game, I'd definitely not necessarily seeing it so far in these last few games. He needs to definitely pick it up. There's talk that he might be going back for his senior year. I'm not against that at all. Get another year of continued development. He's only technically played 2 seasons. He's been hurt. He was hurt from a lot of last year. So, but he doesn't have a whole lot to work with. But it's not like he's making big time throws. And you'd think of a guy that could be a possible number 1 overall pick that he would be able to pick it up. Well, that does it for the Week 9 NFL Draft Geek Prospect Review. If you're watching this here on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell to get all the notifications. If you're watching this or you're listening to this on the podcast, make sure you subscribe, SoundCloud, iTunes, and Stitcher. And make sure you rate and review. Thanks for watching. Till next time.